most of Gray's Harbor, I believe. So Mike has a few words to say, correct?
Get my handshake out of the way.
Okay, let's do that, thanks.
Well, thanks, and my seatmate Steve Tharinger's here, and I think he's going to
He's
speak
next,
too. So,
yeah.
you know, I get asked all the time, and how are we going to build a rural economy? And it is companies like First Security Bank that has already remodeled 2 branches on the North Olympic Peninsula, is in the midst of a 3rd remodel in Hadlock, with plans to remodel Port Townsend, and recently acquired a number of community banks down in Grays Harbor. It's through small business, it's through businesses like Edensaw, and growing this tremendous business right here in a rural economy. It is businesses like Frederickson Electric. And it's also through good policy that we've talked about. And Steve and I are very aware of the solar bill and the issue coming up and the challenges, but we've got to continue to support these kinds of initiatives. This is how we're building our rural economy. We don't need this. It's the hard work of people like you, and it's the hard work of your companies. It's the hard work of family-owned business, and we're seeing that all across the North Olympic Peninsula. You know, as we travel and represent you from Grays Harbor, we were down in Grays Harbor last week, and in the heart of our district in Grays Harbor, people don't realize it's the 2nd largest biodiesel plant in the United States. Right here on the North Olympic Peninsula, producing clean biodiesel, and one of their feedstocks is used cooking oil from China. It's used to us, and actually it smells like French fries when they're refining it, apparently. So there's
tax on that, so.
yeah, exactly. Well, they're a little concerned about some of the tariffs issues, but they're also concerned because most of their product is going into Oregon and California, because through some of the solar fossil fuel folks that are not interested in B5, biodiesel, 5%, or diesel being with 5% biodiesel like the other states. So Steve and I are going to work on that. We're going to work on supporting the solar industry. This is how we're going to build our local. This is my point. This is the new economy for rural communities like Jefferson, Clallam, and Grays Harbor County, and it's really exciting to be part of seeing it happen and supporting the businesses and supporting men and women who are working so hard. So really an honor to be here today. We could talk forever about sustainable forestry, the impacts of that. That's a passion for me, the sustainable forestry. That nothing else. I'll leave you with this thought. You can be very proud and if you're environmentally sensitive and have concerns about climate change, you live in an area that is sequestering way more carbon than we are generating. And that is a fact, and it looks like about 25% of the carbon produced by the United States is sequestered in our coastal forests from Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. So it's definitely living on the peninsula, we're part of an ecosystem. But that carbon is being stored, and when it's put into a product like this, and put into a building material or any other product, that carbon is stored and another tree is taken. See, I could talk about this for a long
time. So next up we have his partner, Steve, sporting a new hat also.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
actually, as some folks may know, before I got into politics, I was in the wood manufacturing business. I was a client of Edensaw. And I got into that woodworking business by building a boat in Port Townsend. This is back 40 years ago. Actually, just when the Wooden Boat Festival was starting, Sam Connor, some of you remember in the Wooden Boat School, we built a Swampscott dory, and with that, learned how to bend wood. And then during the late 70s, early 80s, when there was a real downturn in the economy around here, we started using that technology to bend. We used steam bending of red oak, actually, that we're getting here, and we would steam bend. It was basically 2.125 inches, 3/4 inch thick red oak, kiln dried, that we'd soak to get water back in between the cells. So you kiln dried it to take the water out of the cells themselves, and then you would soak it and put water back between the cells. We'd steam it for a couple hours, bend it, and you bend it into a 17-inch diameter piece. So I had all these half circles. We put them together in ovals and of 2 feet, 3, 6, already out to 5. Put brass chain on them and sell them as pot racks to hang your pots and pans. And we also bought, and I was just talking to your marketing guy, we also bought backer board from you guys.
Oh, yeah.
The backer board is, if you guys know wood at all, it's what's left from the log or the timber, the lumber, when they're peeling off the veneers. And it's really high quality quarter sawn oak is what we were using. And it's got lots of flaws in it, but we were cutting it up into really small pieces for recipe boxes. So that was back in the 80s and 90s. So Edensaw, that was back in the day when that truck was showing up at our place probably once a week. So that's great. Now I got a little different job in the legislature. And Mike is right. It's these kind of partnerships. Glad to hear that we got something right. Seems like we've got more work to do to extend that policy so they can have larger arrays, and also make sure the incentive has more capacity so more people can do this. And as you know, there is a ballot measure, as was mentioned, on about limiting carbon. I'll just be honest, that's a tough initiative out here on the peninsula because of the amount of driving we do, and and I think rightfully so, it will be a gas tax, and it will impact our transportation piece. But as we make these kind of investments and generate more power, which leads to the ability to fund our transportation system with electricity and the power that these kind of arrays create, we can solve that problem and support a carbon-free initiative here in the state of Washington. Quite honestly, I don't know if we're quite there yet. I think what we will probably do, I hope the initiative passes. I'm not convinced it will, but I think what we'll try to do in the legislature is push for a goal of being fossil-free by 2035, 2040, and that will build in more creativity, more incentive to do the things we're talking about today. And I think that's what we need to do. One of the things we need more of is we need more charging stations. Washington has the worst ratio of electric cars to charging stations, and it's particularly a challenge here in the peninsula. So that is the type of incentive. As some of you know, I chair the Capital Budget Committee in the House, and I have a fair amount to say about those types of investments. And I think if the initiative doesn't pass, take heart, because we will make those investments to reach that goal of being fossil-free. Washington, our major fossil carbon footprint is our transportation system. It's 40% of our carbon footprint. So that's, no matter what we do, we need to really work on that. And I think Mike and I are in good positions to be able to do that. So it's just great to be here. It's great to see the success of Edensaw. And as Mike mentioned, another thing we work on is carbon sequestration, and with building materials. You are looking at a lot of carbon. So it's carbon that's sequestered in the forest, and then as you mill it up and put it into a structure or a facility for over 45 years or something, you're looking at almost 100 years of carbon sequestration. And that's really helpful. So we're looking at cross-laminated timber and different ways to use smaller dimensional lumber to build schools, build affordable housing, and we're kind of in a sweet spot here on the peninsula with that. So just a lot of really good things happening, and just glad to be able to be part of that and to continue working with you to make it even better. So thank you.
So talking about charging stations, Cascadia Solar provided 2 free charging stations and installed them for us here, one outside this building and one outside the other building. So we have 2 more now. Wow, we're at the stage for the event that you actually came for, which is to flip the switch event. My wife, Armin, is going to flip the switch, and it's just outside the big door coming in here, so if we just all gather out there, we can do that. And I just want to thank you all so very much for coming.